dig up a past I swore would stay buried.
You will always be a monster.
Ares! I have nothing more to hide.
The ghost of Sparta had been born.
Are Kratos' ashes fading away? I'll cut to the chase. We all know that they are. We cannot argue that they aren't because Cory Barlog, the creator and creative director of God of War 2018, confirmed that they are.
The ash that covers Kratos fading over time? A little bit.
But what could that mean? Does this mean that the curse put on Kratos to have the ashes of his family fastened to his skin for all to see, and the curse for him to be known as the ghost of Sparta is fading away? And could that mean that the curse put on Kratos to be immortal and live forever fade away eventually as well? Let's find out. But before we get to any of that, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for more content just like this. Firstly, I want you to listen to this small conversation between Kratos and Freya, where they speculate why Kratos can no longer summon his old powers. Keyword here being speculate. Anyway, watch this.
Brother, I've been meaning to ask. Your homeland. I'd heard the gods there wielded every flavour of power you could imagine. Lightning, fire, the whole lot.
As did I, for many years.
Oh, any chance you could recall some of that magic?
No, I have tried.
Magic is bound to the earth. When your homeland died, your powers probably went with it.
Well, probably for the best. Let the past stay in the past and all that.
What kind of magic could Kratos be referring to here? What type of magic could he have tried to summon but failed? Well, to answer that question, we'll need to dive into Kratos' old powers, their source, and how he had lost them. Let's start chronologically with God of War Ascension. In God of War Ascension, we just assume he threw away his powers and weapons after his vendetta against Ares worsened. It's not very clear how he lost his powers at the end of that game, but it doesn't really matter. That game was kinda shit anyway. At the end of God of War Chains of Olympus, however, the powers and weapons Kratos obtained throughout the course of that game were stripped away from him by Zeus and Athena, and that is why he had no powers or the weapons from that game at the start of God of War 1. And at the end of God of War 1, the weapons Kratos had throughout that game, the Blades of Artemis and the Blades of Chaos, were taken away from him by Ares, which is why Athena gifted him with the Blades of Athena. And that explains why Kratos doesn't have those weapons, the Blade of Artemis and the Blades of Chaos, with him in future games. Kratos does keep, however, the powers he received from the other gods. Poseidon's Rage, Zeus's Fury, Medusa's Gaze, and the Army of Hades. It is assumed that Kratos has these powers throughout the course of Ghost of Sparta, but does not use them either because he left his powers on Mount Olympus, or he simply did not feel the need to use them during his mission to find Deimos. We do know that he does have access to those weapons since we see Kratos use Poseidon's Rage in God of War 2, which its events occur chronologically after Ghost of Sparta. Anyway, we don't really care about why he doesn't use them, we're more concerned with the fact of how he lost them. At the end of Ghost of Sparta, Kratos gives up the weapons and powers he obtained over the course of his journey to find his brother Deimos to serve as a tombstone for him. That is why at the start of God of War 2, we do not have any of the weapons, items, or powers from Ghost of Sparta. We do have though Poseidon's Rage from God of War 1. But what about the rest of his powers from God of War 1? Well, those were taken away from him by Zeus at the start of God of War 2 when Zeus struck him in his eagle form.
Athena! You conspire against me!
Kratos assumes the eagle is Athena, but it is revealed to be Zeus later. Anyway, this strips Kratos from most of his powers but not all. This is confirmed by this voice line.
By the gods, he's killed them all! He still has some of the powers of a god! Run!
One of the godly powers that Kratos managed to keep was Poseidon's Rage, which he doesn't maintain for long. Zeus tricks him to losing all his godly powers into the Blade of Olympus, and he officially loses all of his powers from God of War 1 at that point. Then throughout the course of God of War 2, Kratos rebuilds his powers and gains new weapons, but unfortunately loses all of them at the start of God of War 3 when he falls off of Gaia and gets sucked into the river Styx. So then that leaves the powers from God of War 3. Could the magic Kratos tried to summon in God of War Ragnarok be the magic he obtained in God of War 3? Well, no, it couldn't be. Kratos' powers from that game came from weapons he earned throughout it. And we all know Kratos left all the weapons from that game back in Greece. So what type of magic did he try to summon, and why could he not summon it? It couldn't have been any magic from God of War Ascension, since he lost those before the events of Chains of Olympus. It couldn't have been magic from Chains of Olympus, because Zeus and Athena took everything away from him at the end of that game. It couldn't have been magic from God of War 1 or Ghost of Sparta, because he lost that magic at the start of God of War 2. It couldn't have been magic from God of War 3, because that magic came from the weapons he obtained in that game, and he lost those weapons in Greece. Could the magic Kratos be referring to in this clip be his old powers to absorb red, green, and blue orbs? I mean, it would make sense. In the old God of War games, Kratos would get stronger with each of his kills. He would consume the red, green, and blue orbs of his enemies and use them to make himself and his weapons stronger, heal himself, and fuel his powers. I mean, you could argue that the orbs are just a part of the gameplay, a mechanic in a game, but is it? In God of War 2, the blades of Athena first glue a bright golden blue. But when Kratos lost all his powers to the blade of Olympus, the blades of Athena lost their glow. And when Kratos refueled and upgraded the blades of Athena himself, they shone a bright red to indicate that the strength of the blades of Athena now came from Kratos and the red orbs he used to fuel them. Whereas at the beginning of the game, they shone a bright golden blue to indicate that the powers came from Athena. This subtle change in the color of the blades establishes that the red orbs of the game are more than just a mechanic, but they have a more canonical purpose. It would make sense that the red orbs are tied to Kratos' homeland. It seemed to be the source of all great power. The blade of Olympus was powered by red orbs. The river Styx was run by red, green, and blue orbs. Greece seemed to exert power through red orbs, and green and blue orbs as well. The Greeks seem to have found a way to harvest the orbs from the land, keep them in chests, vases, boxes, and barrels, and the orbs would seep into the wood and environment for Kratos to reap. Perhaps why Kratos can no longer extract orbs from his enemies is because the enemies in God of War 2018 and God of War Ragnarok do not get their strength and powers from orbs. The Norse lands don't exert orbs the same way Greece did. Or the reason Kratos can no longer get stronger from the enemies he kills by manifesting their deaths into orbs which he can consume to make himself stronger is because he lost the ability and magic to do that since his homeland has been destroyed. The destruction of his homeland could also explain why the ashes are fading. A curse is a type of magic, and since the oracle who cursed Kratos was from Greece and the curse itself was of Greek origin, and magic is tied to its homeland, and since Greece is gone, it would explain why the curse and Kratos' ashes are fading. But wait, if that is the case, then why can Kratos' blades of chaos still produce fire? What about the curse of him living forever? The fire from his blades and the curse on him to live indefinitely are both of Greek origin. First of all, I want to establish that Greece is not gone. Yes, Kratos destroyed Greece, but there's evidence in the games that suggests that it has been rebuilt, like the vase and mural in Tyr's temple. I mean, the whole purpose of God of War 3's ending is that Kratos tries to kill himself to release the power of hope to the people and give them a fighting chance to rebuild their home. So theoretically, you could argue that the reason the Blades of Chaos and Kratos' curse to live forever are still running is because Greece has been rebuilt. But then, that would disregard the fact that Kratos' curse to have his ashes fastened to his skin forever is fading. So here's what's actually going on. Remember, Kratos and Freya were only speculating as to why Kratos cannot summon his old powers, but the truth is the magic is tied to either the god or relic that holds domain over it. The Blades of Chaos were forged in the depths of Tartarus, and Tartarus is not a place or a land, but a living creature. and he still lives. That is why the Blades of Chaos still work. The curse to have the ashes of Kratos' family stuck onto his skin could be fading because the Oracle is probably long gone, dead, and so her curse is lifting. It is likely that her curse is not strong enough to keep up with Kratos' immortality. But if this theory is correct, this could mean that the god or goddess who cursed Kratos to live forever lives, and that is why the curse remains. I wonder who it could be. Aphrodite? Apollo? Athena? I don't know. Comment down below and tell me what you think. So, to conclude, Greece is not gone. It has been rebuilt. Kratos had already lost most of his magic long before he made it to Midgard. He cannot consume orbs from his enemies anymore since his enemies are not fueled by orbs. Magic is lost when the god or relic that holds domain over that magic is lost or destroyed. Tartarus lives, and that is why Kratos' Blades of Chaos still produce primordial flame. The god or goddess that has cursed Kratos to live forever lives as well. The oracle who cursed Kratos to carry his family's ashes is likely dead, and that is why the ashes are fading. The oracle probably did not expect Kratos to live that long, and so when she cursed him forever, she probably meant until he lived the rest of his mortal life.
All would know him for the beast he had become, his skin white with the ash of his dead family. The ghost of Sparta had been born. In the end, in death, he had failed. As the minions of Ares claimed Pandora's box, Kratos' life faded, and his cursed soul was cast into the fires of Hades.